Hello fellow photographers, I'm Sabine and the title of today's video is The Rule of Thirds and When to Break It. I'm sure most of you know and use the rule of thirds already, so in this video I'm just going to give a brief introduction of the rule of thirds, and then I'm going to dive right into why this composition technique might not always be the right choice for your photos. And I will show you other effective ways to create impactful compositions. Starting out in wildlife photography, you'll probably find yourself shooting left, right and center without paying any attention to composition. And who can blame you? As a beginner photographer, there's so much to remember, and those fleeting moments of wildlife really do encourage to just snap away. Then you'll learn about the rule of thirds, where the frame is divided into 9 equal rectangles by drawing 2 lines down and 2 lines across. The idea is to now position important elements like the horizon or the main subject along any of these lines. Another option could be to place key elements, such as the head or the eye of your subject, on any of the intersection points. So why does that work better than placing your subject dead center in the frame? Well, people like to look at movement. So in order to enjoy a photograph, we need to feel there is some movement in it, or at least some potential movement, or at the very least something happening outside of the frame. If your subject is right in the center, there is no movement and the viewer's eye is directed straight to the subject and it stays there. With the rule of thirds applied, the subject is in the left or right third or 2/3 of the frame, and therefore it seems to be in motion. Your eye wants to follow it into the opposite third of the frame, and it feels like something is happening. And that is exactly why the rule of thirds is such a powerful compositional tool. In-camera grid overlays and editing software crop overlays make it super easy to follow and fine-tune the rule of thirds. And with no time, you'll be able to apply it without much thought at all. But that is also where the danger lies in getting stuck in a habit. If you see the rule of thirds as a rule, all your photographs eventually will start to look alike and in the long run will lose their effectiveness. If you, however, look at it as a guideline, then you can make a choice whether to use it or not, depending on the scene in front of you. Before I continue on how to break the rules of thirds, if you do like our channel and the content we provide, please make sure to subscribe by pressing the bell icon below. And of course, I'd be also happy if you give this video a thumbs up. So let's have a look at the different ways on how to break the rule of thirds in wildlife photography. The first and most obvious alternative to the rule of thirds is placing your horizon or subject right in the center of the frame. A prominent horizontal line in the dead center of an image perfectly bisects it and gives equal weight to the 2 halves of the image. Shooting a subject centrally works particularly well when using a portrait or square format, where there often simply isn't a horizontal space to allow the subject to be placed off to the left or right of center. An animal or bird from the front that is looking straight down the lens lends itself to be framed in the center, rather than using the rule of thirds. This way the viewer is directly drawn towards the subject, reducing the importance of the setting or backdrop and creating an impactful portrait. You might also place your subject dead center, cropping in tightly to avoid any distractions. Here you might partially adhere to the rule of thirds by placing both eyes on the intersecting lines, even though the subject itself is centered. So you are both obeying and breaking the rules of thirds at the same time. In case of symmetry and reflections, photographs tend to look again more pleasing and balanced if the subject is in the center. As much as we like to look at movement, we are also attracted to symmetry, which gives us a feeling of peace and serenity. So whether there is symmetry around the subject or within the subject itself, we can center it and the symmetry will bring balance and purpose to the composition. Please keep in mind though that if you center your subject or horizon, make sure that it is exactly in the center. slightly off is already a much weaker composition and has less intent about it. And if you didn't manage to perfect it in the camera, you can always crop it later to get it just right. Quite an unconventional way to compose an image, but one that sets you apart from the crowd, is to use the very extremes of the image frame and leave some negative space. It can feel risky and daring, plus it needs to be done skillfully, but if you pull it off, it certainly is different. For example, if you've got an interesting sky and a relatively featureless landscape, give most of the frame over to the sky and drop the horizon right down with your subject situated right at the bottom. For a minimalistic approach, the sky could also be uniform and empty, defining the positive space or main focal point. Having large spans of empty space can really draw the viewer in and completely change the mood of an image. Additionally, you can experiment with the subject bursting out of the edges of the frame, or have it quietly occupying the bottom of the frame, encouraging the viewer to explore the setting in more detail. Positioning wildlife on the far left or far right of an image can also be very effective, as the eye is set to track from left to right when viewing a photograph. So the effect can be quite different depending on whether you put your subject on the far left, where the eye starts to observe, or on the far right, where it ends up having viewed the rest of the image first. Be cautious though not to frame your subject or horizon too close to the edge without any breathing space, as that might look awkward. Last but not least, use the image corners. They're often forgotten in wildlife photography and being darkened as to draw more attention towards the center of the frame. It's a bold move, but try and use the corners more actively and see how it feels. I hope you enjoyed these ideas and thinking out of the rule of thirds box. If you have any additional tips on composition, please leave them in the comments down below. And if you would like to join me on safari in the near future, there's also a link in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to welcome you soon here in Botswana. Bye bye!